Welcome everyone to MailFuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 7, Episode 10. It's called Inheritance. So spoilers for the episode as always. In this episode, the Enterprise is at a planet which is basically on the short road to becoming the next Krypton, where it's going to blow up because the core of the planet's solidifying or some bollocks.
Getting a little cold.
Yeah, basically this is just background noise though as to why they're here. The main story is actually about one of the people on this planet is a human named Juliana Tainer, and she then claims to be Data's mother. She claims to be married to Ninian Soon, and that she helped create Data, and that's what 95% of the episode actually spends its time on. The stuff on the planet is just why they're there. It gives you one scene later where there's a bit of a peril that leads into what the main plot's doing. Other than that, it's completely just there in the background. There's no reason to really worry about it. To the point where I actually thought for a while in the middle of this episode that Picard wasn't going to show up again, because he's at a meeting scene at the start, and then he's just gone, and Riker's like the one that is kind of the authority figure that some of the alien dude speaks to occasionally, but like 80% of the scenes in this episode are Data and Juliana, and that's it. Like, it's just them talking, discussing the awkward little moments, her telling him about his creation and what it was like before he was created, what his childhood that he's forgotten was like because it was erased from his memory, all that kind of stuff. So we'll get into it. What did you think of this episode?
Okay, so a caveat with, there was a point in this episode where I thought it was going to go down a wildly different path.
Were you
and I feel like I would have had...
Were you expecting it to turn out to be evil at some point? Because I was kind of waiting for it the whole time.
No, not evil, but I thought she played it not particularly a motherly relationship. And I was expecting it to go down a different route. I thought she was extremely flirty at points with it, and I thought it was going to go down a different route as to maybe she's seeing Data not as a child but as a replacement for Dr. Sung, like something like that. And I thought that would have been a more interesting thing, and then it didn't do that, and I was like,
Did you kind of just ignore the part where she's married to the alien dude that's there as well?
Yeah. No, well, no, but like what I mean by that, is I think. In my head, what was, because again, the way it was being played, I honestly, it was so like to me, that's how it was coming across, and I was taking it as to not that she wasn't married to him, obviously, but like more like, hey, this is like rekindling the idea of this relationship from like 20 years in the past.
You've been watching too much stepmom videos on the internet.
Clearly, yeah, that's what I've been doing.
I'm kind of mixed on this episode. I think there's some interesting things at the very end. Like, Data gets a choice at the very end, which is finally where I'm like, oh, that's actually quite intriguing and is something big for Data to do and consider. And he has to make a choice based on what he thinks is best for someone else, and that's a very human thing for him to do. I like that predicament. The majority of this episode, though, I found kind of a slog. I found a lot of the scenes with him and Juliana, which were very back-to-back. There's large stretches where there's no B-plot to cut to. It just stays on them. It's their next scene. They're practicing violin and viola together. They're she's looking at his paintings. They're discussing the computer competitions. They're catching up about his childhood. She's explaining why she didn't know him or he didn't know her. And it's like
about his child / her granddaughter.
Yes. Remember Lal? Remember that episode?
Yeah, definitely.
I actually do remember that episode.
I do once they brought it up, but like, I think if you just asked me blind, I would not have remembered like much. But with the prompting, sure, which is obviously why it's there.
Yeah. I think my frustration came from a few different things. Is that I just don't think the relationship between Data and Juliana, it wasn't that engaging to me, I think, for a few reasons. One is that I kind of expected the entire time, I mean, I said evil earlier on, I don't know if that's necessarily accurate to what I was thinking. Maybe evil, maybe, oh no, she's kind of like a sad, obsessed old woman who's like doing this because she wants to claim him as a son, because she wants a son, but not because she actually is who she says she is. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. So it made all of the emotional connecting feel like I can't get into this because I don't believe it. I'm not taking this at face value. I think there's an undercurrent here that is going to be revealed later. So I just couldn't get into the actual bonding of what this was. I just didn't believe it was really his mother for basically 80% of the episode.
Ultimately, when I said, "Oh, it didn't play like that sort of relationship," to me, I said, it came across as something else. I think this is the underlying problem is I didn't believe that this is what they were trying to sell. So I'm trying to second guess it. Because I was like, there's all these little moments where I guess their intentions, it's supposed to be like motherly affection, where she touches his arm, puts a hand on his. And it does like little close-ups on it. It draws attention to it, which is why I felt like it was trying to subvert things. And the fact that this is meant to be them playing it straight the entire time, I think makes it kind of a little bit worse in retrospect, because it's like, well, it didn't necessarily, we were both waiting for this reveal, different things, but we're both waiting for a reveal of some kind, which means they weren't doing a good enough job on selling us this relationship.
Yeah, and it's weird because had I believed it, I might have enjoyed Data experiencing some of these things that he's going through, but as it was, I was just kind of like, I don't know. It always felt like a guest star who was never going to come back. I guess I didn't feel like it was actually an important character. The episode didn't convince me of that, and maybe it's something as simple as having more of a plot to wrap around it, so they're doing something more consistently, as opposed to it literally just being scenes and scenes and scenes of them bonding back to back to back to back, because I really felt that in the pacing. Like there was a certain point where I started to roll my eyes when it would fade to black for the ad break, back in the day. It comes back up, oh, we're back to just them sitting around talking.
There's a point towards the end of the episode where they go on like the mission, right? I feel like you could have done another trip to the planet earlier on, and it didn't have to lead to that reveal earlier in the episode or anything, but more just they could have been bonding out in the field doing something. It might have, I don't know, it might have given it a bit more impetus and not feel like we were just sitting and watching them going through Data's life.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of said at the start, the story of the planet just felt like background noise. It never really felt like it had real stakes. I think if maybe they had focused on that a little bit more, just to make it feel like, oh no, like if we don't pull this off, millions of people are going to lose their home and they're all going to have to be evacuated. Like they could have really maybe tried to make that feel like it had some weight. But the way it's talked about every time it comes up, even from the start of the episode when they're saying, hey, this is what's happening, it's going to be permanent unless we do something, immediately it's just kind of like, well, I believe we could do this and this would fix it on a more permanent basis. It would last for centuries. And it's all very kind of like done in a very calm manner where like it never feels like there's any heightened tension or like, oh, we're desperate.
There's no real jeopardy about it.
Yeah. Everyone's acting like, oh, like the porch needs painted. Well, we'll get out some paintbrushes and we'll paint it. We'll get started right away. Yes, that will be very pleasant. Like that's the tone of which the disaster or the conundrum is being faced in this episode.
I think like that's kind of fine coming from our characters, like the crew, because they deal with this level of stuff on a regular basis, right? They're kind of, hey, yeah, we'll get a solution, we'll figure it out. I think the people from the planet who it's their home, they take this going, oh, you're gonna solve it, all right, cool, we'll just let you get on with it. Like there's no real fear from them.
Yeah, it's especially weird that like one of our two main characters, so we've got Juliana and her husband who's an alien from this planet. She immediately says, Data, it's you. And then like she goes down that plot path, and other than doing some calculations as they occasionally bring up what's going on in the main plot or the background plot, she's entirely focused on Data and rekindling like her relationship with Data. Like that's all she really seems to care about. And I think given the big points that it makes towards the end of the episode, where the reveal is that she turns out to be an android, but with the caveat that she doesn't know that. She actually thinks she's human because she was a real person, and Noonien soon transferred her consciousness to a more advanced robot than Data even is. You know, they talk about that she has more advanced tear ducts, she has more advanced this, that, she tricks scanners into thinking she's human, all this stuff, which honestly, like, did give me some weird, like, flash forwards to Picard, because transferring a person to an android body is something that comes up in that show. So they established it on Next Gen. I can't deny that it came up.
Does that make that show any better?
No, it does not. No. Season 1 and 2 of that show are horrible. Season 3 isn't particularly great. It's just kind of a nostalgia bomb. But it's better than what the complete train wreck that 1 and 2 were, even if it's a bit shallow. So take that for what you will. But anyway, so the whole big thing, though, towards the end of this episode, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but Troy makes probably the best point of the whole episode, which is that when Data's struggling with this decision, do I tell her what she really is, or do I let her go on believing she's still a human? Troy points out that, well, if you take that away from her, then you're taking away from her what you've always wanted, which is to feel human, and you'll ruin that for her. And I feel like maybe emphasizing more human connections for her throughout the episode, like that she cares about her current husband, that she cares about the people on this planet, like have her act more human. But in hindsight, she kind of ignores everything and only focuses on Data, which makes her feel more robotic in a weird sense, when she's not supposed to. She's, the whole idea of this is that, you know, when the hologram and Union Sung's telling Data all this, we'll get to what that, you know, how we get there, but when he's explaining all this, he's like, no, she is her in every way that's important, and she is human. She believes she's human. You know, she thinks like a human.
It's so frustrating, because I think this point of the episode, like, this is easily the best part.
Easily, yeah. This meeting where Picard, Troy, and everyone are listening to Data, basically just putting the table, this is my decision that I need to make, this is my dilemma, what do I do? And there's arguments for and against, and yeah.
Like, good arguments on both sides, and why was this not the episode?
They should have like set up this dilemma at the end of like Act 1, and then the rest of the episode should have been this debate.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, this scene is legitimately very good. Like, from, you know, you've got valid arguments on all sides, but why is it just one scene? Like, it's insane. Like, this is clearly the focal point. This is what everything's built to in this episode, but you can cut out almost all of that building and then start the episode here, basically.
Yeah, and I can even think of some of the things you could do. You could have Data go talk to her current husband, and not tell him, but like try and get to know him to see what her life is like. There's
a tiny bit where the husband, earlier on in the episode, like, it's like, we need to go double check those calculations that Data's done, because he's a machine. There's little bits of tension there that are absolutely meaningless in the episode as it is, but that you could use as the foundation of like a really good, you know, subplot to go down, you know, in this argument, you know, this debate.
Yeah, I mean, maybe when Data tries to talk to him, he doesn't want to entertain Data because he doesn't like that he's a robot, which is obviously ironic given that he's actually married to one.
Like, I think it's there's enough there to say it's very clear he doesn't trust them. Like, oh yeah, they're just machines, you know, and to the point you can't even trust the calculation that the machine does, even though that's usually what you trust machines for. But because it's a machine, he clearly has that viewpoint. So I think like there are definitely, you know, things you could go down that route with in like a better episode doing this stuff. But
yeah, it's frustrating because it reminds me of that last episode or 2 episodes ago, the one with the planet with the climate change stuff, where there's that one great moment where they hear back what the new rules are, and they all kind of have that reaction to oh, this isn't actually good enough. This is Starfleet dropping the ball here, and this isn't going to solve anything. That one legitimate great moment sort of give you a peek at what the episode could have been when the rest of it's pretty rough and mundane. And this, I think, is the same kind of idea where this one debate scene of what should Data do is really good. It plays on like all of Data's story up until this point in the show. You know, it feels like it's, you know, encompassing everything. And the rest of the episode doesn't live up to it. It's
really frustrating. Like, it makes it more frustrating than not having this scene. Because if we don't have it, it's just a mediocre episode. Like, anyway, right?
Yeah.
But with it, I'm like, oh, but now I can see the good version of this episode, and that annoys me more because now now I've got this instead of a version where I know there's potential in there.
Yeah. Like I say, make her actually have more, or I mean, obviously she has them, but let us see her human connection to her husband, to the people she cares about on the planet. Let us care a bit more about her as a character. I think the problem is, as well, is that she's so defined in this episode by only her connection to Data that it's hard to sort of get all the other things she'd be giving up if she is told what she really is. Like, what else is she losing? But the only context we ever get, like the fact that she's married to the alien dude, is barely mentioned. Like, it's brought up once or twice in like casual reference, and that's it. Everything we know about her is all of her regrets about what happened with Data and what happened with, you know, leaving Noonie and Sung because their marriage broke down or whatever. Like, because it's all defined by that and like Data's past, that part of me thinks that based on this episode, I almost would side with the telling her, just because it seems like her entire existence, based on what we see in this episode. Obviously it isn't. Obviously she has this whole life that's going on, but we don't see that. We don't see her care about that. We only see her care about Data and what happened in his life and his past. And that's kind of what I was getting at earlier when I said I was expecting some kind of twist or reveal about who she really was or what her intentions were, based on this idea of like this neediness she seemed to have to, like, you know, it's like, oh, I need to reminisce about Data's childhood and how this and that, we had to write this subroutine, and oh, we had to put in the emotions or the politeness, and then, oh, I don't want to embarrass him because he used to always go about naked because he didn't think he needed clothes. We had to write a new subroutine for that. And it felt like this kind of like, she wants to be a mother. She wants to reminisce about her child and be proud of her child. And it felt, so, it almost felt she was projecting and trying to convince herself that this was the reality.
Yeah. I just like thinking about all this. It makes, again, to go back to why I'm frustrated. If we'd had like the reveal of what she is earlier, there's all that bit of the, you know, would you have left if it was a biological child instead of just, you know, a robot, and, you know, all that stuff about, you know, her wanting to be a mother, that coming across. I'm like, okay, well, this tells us why she doesn't have children, right? Like this, you know, we get the answer later in the episode why she never had any real children with, you know, with the new husband, you know, and it's like, okay, why aren't we playing with that again? Like, there's this. The more I think about this episode, the more I dislike it because of how much it annoys me of wasted potential.
Yeah, because you kind of alluded to it there, but there's a reveal as well at one point where she basically says that she made the choice to leave him behind when the crystal identity attacked, and you know, this idea that he was abandoned intentionally because she was scared that he'd turn out like Lore. That's maybe the other part that I got the closest to enjoying, was when she started talking about kind of how Lore turned out and how she had fears that he would turn out like that. I thought, okay, that's a little bit more interesting, that we're kind of dipping into like the failures that came before Data and that. Like, I perked up a little bit when she started talking about that, because that was an interesting perspective on that. But so much of the episode is her just talking about his childhood, him being dubious and not being ready to believe that she is who she says she is. But all that stuff drags on for quite a bit. And I think it is important that line about, would you have abandoned me if I was a biological child versus a mechanical one? And she kind of admits that she wouldn't have done. Like, I think that line's important. I think you still have that line, that conversation still happens if you reveal it earlier in the episode. And then you have him, you know, spend the majority of the episode with this dilemma and talking to other, maybe he has a one-on-one scene with Geordi because he's his friend, has a one-on-one scene with Picard because Picard's like his father figure on the ship, you know, he's the one he looks up to. Maybe he goes to like all the different crew members, like really treat it as like this is the Data dilemma episode and he's going to everyone he knows for advice.
Basically, take that one scene where they're all around the table and extend that out over like 20 plus minutes with a scene with each one of them giving their arguments and a little back and forth with Data, as opposed to just, here's our quick rapid fire thoughts.
Yeah. Because ultimately, of course, he decides not to tell her. He says that she broke her arm, she got knocked out when they jumped off the little cliff thing, because basically they were underground and like earthquakes were going off, there was tremors and everything was going all wonky. And that's when they sort of discover she's a robot. Although Data reveals that he had suspicions already, based on a couple of things. One, that she played like the violin or the viola the exact same way every time. There was never any like slight change or timing difference. It was machine like in its precision.
Yeah. It's a good job he was right though. Otherwise, she probably would have died in that jump. She's like, I can't make it, and he's like, you'll be fine.
I thought that he was going to pick her up and jump off holding her because he's Data. He's strong enough to hold a human being.
That's
and
what
land.
I thought.
Yeah.
And they both it was quite a hefty jump. Like,
and she's not like a spring chicken either. She's she's almost in her 60s here. Like, what's happening?
Exactly. And then I'm like, okay, this is a bit weird, but like, sure. And then obviously it gets to the bottom and the arm. I'm like, oh, that explains it.
Yeah, it's almost like he wanted to like test her with the jump because he suspected it like heavily by this point. So they find like a chip inside, and he has like a sort of Superman Jor-El conversation with Noonien, where he goes into the holodeck, it boots up, and at first he sort of treats Data like, oh, whoever's found this disc has discovered she's an android. And when he says that he's Data, he's like, oh, I wrote a specific conversation.
I hoped it'd be you.
I hoped it would be Data. And he basically explains that, she was real. She was a real person. She is more advanced than you because the android is more advanced because it came later. But it was a real person whose memories were transferred over to the android, and that's what she actually is. And that's a fine concept. I'm actually like, that makes her far more interesting than just being an android or just being his mother. But it's revealed so late in the episode that, yeah.
Again, if this was earlier in the episode, it opens up the debate of, is she still her? Is she a real person, or is she just an like, again, it's just frustrating because it doesn't even begin to. It has no interest in that question right now.
No.
Like it not at all. But I feel like it probably should.
Yeah. There was one point in the scene, the one great scene of the episode where they're all like giving their opinions and advice to Data, where Beverly is saying that she would want to know and that she would want her son to tell her. And I thought, Beverly, do you think Wesley would be able to break this news to you if he found out you were an android? Come on now. Come on.
Yeah, no chance.
No.
I liked again, I like Picard's argument in this one, but like, well, hey, she might find out later down the line it'd be worse because maybe she has an accident, maybe she goes into a hospital, and they find out and they have to tell her because they don't realize to not tell her, and maybe she completely snaps. Yeah,
that's what I liked about Troy's winning argument, though, is that I actually think it makes sense that one won, despite all these good points that everyone else makes. Her reason of like, no, you're robbing her of the thing that you've been wanting your entire existence, felt like the thing that to convince him. It's like, even if there's a risk that one day she'll find out and I have to confront that future, it's worth it to give her this illusion.
For at least a bit longer.
Yeah. Let her enjoy whatever time she's got left. Because Noonien Sung did make it clear that she is going to die. Like, he programmed her to expire at some point, so she's, living out a normal lifespan. So, yeah, good. Some interesting ideas, certainly towards the end, but it takes a long time to get there, and because I never bought into the Data-mother relationship, convinced that it was fake, that there was a swerve coming, and there kind of is a swerve because she's an android, but it's not, the swerve didn't take away the fact that it was still supposed to be a genuine connection. That connection was still supposed to be real, so because I never felt that before, it kind of fell a bit flat in its face.
But if you take all that down and cut it down to just the first part of the episode, that connection... any bonding done after that we see Data trying to bond with her, it'll feel more genuine because we'll know the truth then. So we can see some of those scenes of them bonding, but we'll know, okay, it's coming from a real place. Yeah, especially it would be enhanced as well because in some way he like would relate to her better now. Like he understands. Like, I mean, that point's even brought up is that like he wouldn't be the only android anymore. He'd have someone to share that experience with. That's one of the arguments that's brought up, but I think it's his argument. It's why he says he's struggling to make an impartial decision because he feels like he's biased. Yeah, there's definitely interesting things there, and it would have made any bonding after that fact a bit more weighty. It would have had definitely a lot more depth to it if they'd done that.
Yeah, very frustrating. I'm worried that this is going to be a trend where I think this is like 3 episodes in a row where there's like one great scene in an episode and the rest of it's kind of just there.
Yeah, because we had the Picard and Crusher campfire.
Yeah, campfire scene was great.
What was the last one?
It was Starfleet giving the rules for the
climate change,
the space climate change stuff. Yeah,
and then this one, yeah.
They've all had one great idea slash scene that is genuinely good on its own, but you can see what the rest of the episode could have been, and that's now 3 in a row.
I think this one's probably the most frustrating of the 3, though, where I feel like there's easily a full episode based on just this. They can really expand out, and they're just not interested in it.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. So we'll be back to Deep Space Nine next review, but when we do return to The Next Generation, we'll be looking at an episode called Parallels. And here is a description from IMDb. On his return from a Batleth competition on the Klingon Empire, Worf finds himself shifting realities where events and details are in a constant state of flux, and he is aware of the changes. Okay, sounds like a fun episode. It's a fun premise.
Has potential.
And I think Worf being the one who's in like the not the Groundhog Day, but the everything's changing around him and no one else believes him. I think it's fun, the idea of it being Worf, because he's such a he was a Klingon. He's got a bit of a temper. That sounds entertaining. He's going to get
so frustrated because I can see again ideas. Maybe he thinks people are pulling a joke on him at first. If it's small things that are changing, and I can see him getting frustrated at people.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm just noticing from the images here. I try not to look too close. I don't want spoilers, but there's images of him in his usual gold, but there's also some of them in red. So I feel like okay. So we're going to be in some different outfits. I mean, they're not that different. It's the same thing, just a different color. But all right, okay. Sounds promising. So hopefully we're on to a winner with the next episode. But that is us. You can support the show over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses, particularly for the movie channel, MailFuzz Movies, where all the movie podcasts live. There's a lot of bonuses on there for that stuff. And of course, you can subscribe, you can let us know in the comments what you think of the episode. But that is us. So thank you once again for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And somewhere out there, the only robot that Wesley Crusher has is the one he bought off a dodgy website so he can stick his little crusher in it.